Did you know that Muck Boots all started with a universal problem, muck? And did you know that it's their 25th anniversary this year? Neither did I. But I do know that when you buy boots that don't last, it's really frustrating to have to replace them every couple of months. So check out Muck Boots. The link is in the show notes. The very first thing that got hung in my beautiful kitchen when we moved in here 4.5 years ago was a calendars.com Lang calendar because I needed something familiar in my new house. My mom loves them. We love them. Go check them out. The link is in the show notes. You're listening to A Tiny Homestead, the podcast comprised entirely of conversations with homesteaders, cottage food producers, and crafters, and topics adjacent. I'm your host, Mary Lewis. A Tiny Homestead podcast is sponsored by Homegrown Collective, a free-to-use farm-to-table platform, emphasizing local connections with ability to sell online, buy, sell, trade in local garden groups, and help us grow a new food system. You can find them at homegrowncollective.org. If you're enjoying this podcast, please like, subscribe, share it with a friend, or leave a comment. Thank you. Today I'm talking with Marissa at 5 Acre Wood Homestead in Washington State. Good evening, Marissa. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to talk with you because you have everything going on at your homestead. So tell me about yourself and what you do.
Well, so we weren't always, homestead life.
Mm-hmm.
I really just stumbled into it, as a lot of us do, right? But I am from a very small, tiny town in Idaho. And there was a lot of, homestead-like things that went on there. And so I did have that very early, young childhood experience of that. Like I have memories of the things my parents had to do to get us through winters and whatnot, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And my mother and my grandmother, they sewed and crocheted and canned and did all the things. And so I kind of always had that influence in my life. But growing up, um, I was, displaced to the city here in Tacoma, and that's where I spent 40 years, was the middle of the city, and had my kids there. And um, it, at a certain point in my life, I just decided that it, it's nice to talk about how we want to get back to the country and the small town life and be self-sufficient and do all the things. But at some point, you just got to do it. And that's really how the homestead came about. And we've been here 6 years now.
Okay.
And still no animals. Still a work in progress, right? Because our homestead was vacant for 5 years before we got it. And so nature kind of just did what nature does and took over.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been, the last 3 years has been a lot of rebuilding and a lot of taking down and a lot of getting, the property back to where we need it to be so that we can incorporate the things that we want to have. It's been a lot of work.
Well, I'm going to jump in for 1 second. You don't have to have animals to be a homesteader. It's totally cool if you
No,
don't.
I know. And so many people have told me that because I feel, um, kind of some days like we're not a real homestead because we don't have animals yet. And you're right. That's not true at all.
Yeah, my friend, she's become a friend. I didn't know her a year ago, but now I do because of the podcast. My friend Amy Fagan at Grounded in Maine is her podcast. She asked me to be a guest, and she basically introduced me as a homesteader who was bucking the system because we only have 3 acres and we don't have cows. And it was kind of tongue in cheek. And for anybody listening, if you are doing something that's an old-fashioned skill as a part of your everyday life, you are
Yep.
practicing homesteading.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. And I do it on so many levels. And I think the animals and the husbandry is probably the only thing that I don't do.
And honestly, that's probably a good thing because we tried raising rabbits here, and number one, they were dumb and didn't procreate the way they were supposed to. And number two, having to cull or butcher those not babies, I called
Yeah,
them babies because they were my babies. But having to butcher those rabbits and put them in the freezer about
yeah,
killed me. I don't
yeah,
want to do it again. I really
right.
don't.
That's a part that it's not everybody can handle that part. Now, my dad did have a family farm down in Corvallis, Oregon. It's not in our family anymore, but my third great grandparents came over on the Oregon Trail, and um, so for many many years there was acreage in my dad's line,
Mhm.
and he was the last one, right? And at the time when he tried to pass it down to my brother and I, my brother did move on to the farm with his family and tried to do it, and decided and realized that that wasn't the life for him. He wasn't cut out for it. And at the time, I turned it down because I was in the middle of the city raising three little kids, and I couldn't, pick up my wife and move to the country and become a farmer. Like, I didn't think that was possible for me at all, and I didn't think that was where I was going in my life. But now, to be where I am now and look back on that, I'm really sad I missed that opportunity, and that, the family lost that piece of land. But I can remember. I have memories of, yeah, the sheep and the pigs, and it's hard. That's just a part of farming that, it's not for everybody.
Yeah, I feel like when you take on livestock, you are taking on more children because that's how it
Yeah,
feels, the responsibility level.
absolutely.
But if you're gardening, it's not nearly as stressful.
Yeah, no. I mean, there's been years where, I've lost whole crops, and it's just like, well, this sucks, but what are you going to do? You just got to keep going.
Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
we do, so it's funny because I say we don't have animals. Well, the homestead has been adopted by Mr. Darcy, who everybody sees pictures of and talks about and loves. He's my neighbor's peacock, and
Hmm.
peacocks are, I found out, they're free roaming birds. They just do what they want and go what they want. And he adopted us. He ended up coming over 3.5, 4 years ago now, and he loves it over here, and he spends the majority of his time here. And last year, um, his wife Lucy laid five eggs in my garden bed, and we had five baby peacocks. And then 3 days later, they were killed in the backfield.
Oh
And that,
no.
yeah, it it was heartbreaking. It was so hard. And I say that was the first homestead loss that I endured with animals. Even though those animals were not mine, it didn't matter. It still hurt just as much.
Yeah.
And um, yeah, Mr. Darcy, we love him. He's a staple on our homestead. Even though he doesn't belong to me, I still claim him, and he claims us.
Oh, that's so funny. And and great story up until the baby peacocks died. Damn
Right?
it.
Yeah, yeah. He has two new wives now, though, and we call them the sister wives. They are
Hmm.
sisters, they're twins, and they look identical. So we're hoping that there
Nice.
will be more babies this year.
Yes, and for anybody who doesn't know, a female peacock is called a peahen, right?
A peahen, yes.
Yeah. Yep.
And they are called peafowl.
Hmm. And aren't the females not as brightly colored? Aren't they like
That's right,
browns?
yes. They
Okay.
are more, they don't have the long tail feathers, and their heads are more greenish most of the time. Um, yeah, they are still very beautiful, though.
Yeah. Yep. We had somebody who lived up the hill from us before we bought this house. At the old house, somebody lived up the hill from us, and they had some peacocks. And the peacocks would come down the hill, and it was basically a wooded hillside. The peacocks would come down the hill and walk down our street and just call.
Yep,
And and I didn't know about this at
yep.
first. And I had moved in
They're
with
very loud.
I had moved in with my friend who became my husband, and I heard them yelling, and I was like, "What is that god awful noise?" And he was like, "Oh, that's the neighborhood peacocks."
Yep.
I said, "In town?" He said, "Yeah, it's really weird." I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
okay, good to know."
they go where they want and do what they want.
Yep. They're like Great Pyrenees dogs. They come home, but they also go wander.
Yep.
Yep. Um, so did I see that you can see Mount Rain, how do you say it, Rainier from your house?
Rainier. Yep, Mount Rainier. We live About 30 minutes outside the park entrance, one of the park entrances. Yeah, and we can't see her from the homestead because, this is Washington and there's trees everywhere.
Okay.
So the trees block our view of her, but we can see her from the highway, which is a half a mile down. So when I go to town every day, I see her. And I try to snap a picture coming up over the hill because it seems like everybody's favorite Rainier picture that I've posted so far is of that view. So there's been quite a lot of them.
It's really beautiful. Your photos are
Oh,
gorgeous.
yeah. John Muir, who was the famous hiker and explorer guy, that he has said that Rainier was the most majestic of all the volcanics in this area, and he's not wrong. I mean, I love all of our mountains, but that one she's just majestic and amazing, and every time you see her, you just are awestruck.
Yeah, I live in Minnesota. There are no mountains anywhere near me, but I grew up in Maine. And
Oh,
so
Maine's beautiful.
I was right between the White Mountains and the ocean. Like my house
Yeah,
was dead center between those two landmarks, geographical formations, whatever. And when people are like, "Why did you leave Maine?" And I'm like, "Because I was married and I didn't think I was going to get divorced at the time." If that had not happened, I would still be living in Maine, honestly.
yeah.
But
I feel,
I'm jealous that you have a big old mountain near you.
yeah. This part of the country is it's definitely not for everybody. I mean, most people when they think of Washington, all they think about is rain.
Hmm.
Um, but our rain is what makes it so beautiful all the time. And we're called
Yeah,
the Evergreen State for a reason. I mean, we've got just about everything. And I can drive 2 hours in any direction and be in a different climate. 2 hours and
nice.
I'm at the ocean, 2 hours I'm at the mountain, 2 hours I'm in the desert and eastern. Like it just is everything you would, want to have. It's all very close.
Yeah, I have not been out that far yet. I don't know if I'll ever get that far west in the United States, but I have friends who have traveled to Oregon and Washington State, and every time I hear about it, they're like, "It's so beautiful. You have to go."
It is. It's absolutely amazingly beautiful.
Nice. Okay. So, you don't have animals on your homestead, but I know that you have started a blog on Facebook and you're doing a series
Yep.
of recipes and you grow plants, right?
Yep. We have a huge garden.
Hmm.
Multiple gardens, I should say, because we've got the big vegetable garden and then I've got herbs just about everywhere. And then we've got, the different flower gardens all over the place. And we've got an orchard up in the front and we've got more trees out in the back. Yeah. And we've been adding. So it's slowly growing.
Okay, forgive my ignorance about the state of Washington, but like I said, never been there. Do you guys get snow? Number one.
We don't get a lot of snow. On the, where we're at right here is it's just a couple 100 feet above sea level. I mean, and it's really crazy this area. I would say between, Seattle, Tacoma area in general, and um, because we have this two huge mountain ranges, right? We have the Cascades going one way and the Olympics going the other, and this huge metropolis right between them.
Mhm.
But the valleys are really only a couple 100 feet above sea level. And so it takes literally the perfect storm to get snow where we are. It rarely happens, but and when it does, it shuts down the cities like
Oh yeah.
completely. We'll get a half an inch of snow and people are losing their minds.
Well, when you're not used to it, it is dangerous.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. And I mean, I was born and raised in Idaho, in the mountains of Idaho. We got 5.5 feet of snow every winter over there. So,
Hmm.
you know, I it was just, I'm used to the snow. It doesn't bother me, and I know how to drive in it. And I still, even though I know how to drive in it, won't, because the people around here don't know how to drive in it, and that makes it scary.
Uh-huh. Yep, absolutely. Um, it's always amazing to me here in Minnesota because the first snowfall we get where it actually builds up even the littlest bit on the highways, you would think people who've lived in Minnesota would know how to drive on snow, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Nope, that first snowfall, there's shit ton of accidents on the first snowfall. And every time it happens, I'm like, people, you know how to drive
Yep.
on this. Come
Yeah.
on.
You should definitely know how to drive in snow and ice if you live in Minnesota.
You would think, yes.
You would
And
think.
I would have tried to not swear, but that was the perfectly appropriate
No,
words
and
to use.
I can completely relate to that because everybody knows that it rains about 8 months out of the year here, and when
Yeah.
we get hard, steady rain up here, people don't know how to drive in that either. And you would think that the people that live in Washington State year round would know how to drive in the rain. No, no, not at all.
Okay. My 23-year-old son would have some very choice things to say about this whole discussion, and it would be very funny, but he's not here right now. So, um, okay, so how cold does it get in the winter, like on average?
I would say on average, I mean, there's been years. There was a couple years ago, where it got down to like 9 degrees. And that was a first for me. I don't think I've ever felt temperature that low. But usually, normally, it can get down into the mid 20s. And when it's that
Okay.
low, it's almost too cold to snow.
Yeah, so you have a fairly temperate climate, really.
We do very temperate, yep. And
So does that
most of the time, the winter weather, it's 30, 35, cloudy, freezing, but not snowing.
Yeah, so does that mean that you can plant your spring garden in like March?
Certain things yes, certain things no, because of the rain.
Oh, okay.
We don't plant out here. My tomatoes, my peppers, all of those things I usually start in the greenhouse in March, 1st of
Yeah.
March, and I don't plant them out until Mother's Day weekend.
That's kind of how we do it here too, only because we're afraid
Yeah.
it's going to frost and kill everything.
Yeah, no, it won't frost here, but not that late usually, but it's the rain. It's just some years it's just so wet in the spring that it will wash everything out.
Yeah.
Nothing will live. It will be soggy mess.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's what happened to us last year. I'm going to talk about this again. People are probably sick of hearing me talk about it. Last year, from May until mid-June, it rained almost every day here. And our
Yep,
garden was an absolute failure for the year.
yep.
And
There was, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, we
there's
were
years.
so sad.
Oh, I know. The year that the garden went in here at the homestead, I was so excited, and we got those beds built, and it was like we happened to have a good weekend that it was not raining, and we decided, yep, we're going to do this. We're going to build the beds, get them ready, right? So we
Uh-huh.
did, and that was in April, I want to say, and they sat there until 4th of July weekend when it finally
Oh,
quit raining.
yep. I don't know if there's much more frustrating than that for a gardener. It's
Yeah,
so it's so maddening because you're like, if it would
yeah,
just stop raining for a couple of
I
days,
know.
maybe I could get something done.
Yep. But I've learned over the course of the last 5 years that every year is different, and you cannot judge from the year before how this year is going to go, and it's going to go how it's going to go, and you have no control over that. You just kind of have to roll with the punches and do the best you can.
Yeah, and on that note, we usually don't plant anything in the garden until May 15th. And
Right.
my husband looked at the long range forecast last week, and he said, "You're not going to be happy." He said, "But I'm going to put the tomato plants in this weekend."
Don't do
And
it.
I said, "No." And
Don't
he
do
said, "Oh
it.
yeah." He said, I'm doing it. And I said, what if they get frostbite, or what if it rains for 2 weeks after you put them in? He said, I can't stand it. He said, the weather has been beautiful. My
Mm-hmm.
garden is tilled and it's
Mm-hmm.
dry. I'm putting
Until you
those
put
in.
those plants in there.
I said, okay. And he put them in on Saturday, I think it was, maybe Sunday. And it has not rained. It has not frosted. It has not been cold. It has been beautiful. And they've grown like 1.5 inches since you put them in the garden. We are so
That's
excited.
not.
So
Yeah.
keep your fingers crossed for me.
Yeah, I will. I definitely will. That's bravery because I never not I'm not putting my tomatoes out before Mother's Day weekend. I'm just not doing it
I
because it's been
know.
beautiful here too. It was 77 degrees yesterday.
Uh-huh. No, I
It's
know. And
rained for 2 weeks.
if I had had any say in the matter, those tomato plants would still be in the greenhouse. But
Yeah.
I couldn't break his heart. I was like, go ahead, it's beautiful out, go for it. But I did put my foot down on the basil plants because basil plants are a lot more finicky
Oh
than
yeah,
tomato
no.
plants.
And peppers.
Yep. Yep. This is the summer that we have been dreaming of since we moved here 4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yep. The infrastructure is finally in. It looks like it's going to be a reasonable summer, according to the Farmer's Almanac, and I kind of trust them. And we just got our farm stand open so we could sell eggs, and we have sold eggs
That's
every
so
day since
exciting.
Saturday. Yep.
I'm hoping
Yep.
that we will get our farm stand built this year. That's one of my goals this year is to get that done.
In and amongst all the other things you do?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
because that's been a lot. It's because for us here, a lot of this general area, there's a lot of small homesteads and there's a lot of small family businesses, and we all kind of do that. We all kind of put up our farm stands, and we go by the honest system,
Yep.
and it works. And that's also a place for pickup and drop off. So if you have something you're selling, you're reselling from the thrift store, or you made a quilt and you're selling, that's the place. So I just know that farm stand is it's another opportunity for me that I really need.
Yes. And
It's going to open doors.
I'm gonna give you a hint if you don't know about this yet. Do you use Venmo as a payment thing?
I do.
Okay, did you
Um,
know? Did you know that Venmo provides you with a QR code for your account
oh, do they?
and you can print
I
it
didn't
out?
know that.
Yep. Ours is hanging in the farm stand so that people can just scan the QR code and pay for
Yeah,
their stuff.
that's great. That's very handy.
Yep, and we also have the little container for actual cash because we don't figure
Right.
anybody's gonna. If somebody steals money out of the cash thing, they need it more than we do.
Right, yeah. And
That's
there's
how
a
we're looking at
there's
it.
a few places around here that do just mason jars with lids. And there's other, it's about half, I would say. Half places do lock boxes with slits in them, and the other half just do mason jars. And
Yep.
I've really only heard of a couple, places that people aren't paying or have stolen, or, it doesn't happen very often, thankfully.
Mm-hmm. We also have a sign out front that says under 24-hour surveillance. So
Right.
if anybody steals money, we'll know who it is. It's fine. So not too worried about it. But I didn't realize that Venmo provided you with a QR code for your account,
Yeah, that
which
is
is
very handy.
awesome. Yep, and we've got 2 printed out to have at the farmer's market this year because I guess people were asking us if we had a Venmo account last year. My husband's the one that does the farmer's market, and I didn't have a Venmo account last farmer's market season, but I do now for the business, and so he's gonna put the printed out Venmo QR codes on the
Right.
tables so that people can use them. So, if for anybody who's listening, that's really handy to have if you're going to do a farm stand or a farmer's market. So, do you quilt? Do you do quilts?
What's that?
Do you do quilting?
I do quilting, yep. Um, I had got into sewing in high school back in the 90s, right? When they still had home ec classes.
Yep.
And my mother had an old, like 1950s Singer at home, and I hated that thing so much. It tried to eat my fingers every time I used it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't use it. And for many, many years, I didn't have the room or the money to spend on a sewing machine. And so I didn't have one of my own. And then, as it happened, my sister bought a new one, and she had this little starter machine, this little basic brother machine.
Yeah.
And she handed it down to me when she got her new one. And so I jumped right in and started sewing. And I actually made 2 quilts with that little machine before my Mr. Homestead decided to surprise me and buy me a new Singer. And he did that for Christmas or right after Christmas this past year. So I do have a brand new sewing machine that I've made a couple quilts with. And the last couple months, it's been just sitting on my desk in my bedroom because I've had so many other things going on, right, with the garden and with the homestead page and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done a lot of sewing in the last few months, but yeah, I've made 4 quilts, I think, in the last year or since September. So yeah, I didn't
Wow.
think I was gonna enjoy it as much as I did, and I really did. The artistic adventure of that is just I love it.
One of my friends just took a quilting class and she made the most beautiful quilt and she drove herself crazy with it, but the quilt came out so gorgeous.
I had to come out to my car because it was really the only quiet place.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. So, we have like 3.5 minutes left. So let's see if we can make it work. Um, your series on Facebook that you're
Yeah.
doing with the recipes. Tell me about that.
So my homestead from scratch series, I basically I was trying to think of things to post on the page that um was when I was trying to think of, okay, what am I going to post, how am I going to get interactions, how am I going to, and I think it was Mr. Homestead that said, just do you, like, what are you good at? Do cooking, do your from scratch stuff, do your mixes, do all that stuff, like. And so I thought, that's a good idea, and I did started posting them, and it only took 2 or 3 days, and it just exploded, and now everybody is like sharing and talking about this, and and so I actually did turn it into a series, um and I post at least 1 or 2 things a day, um and I'm trying to start at the mixes and the gravies and the bouillons and the spice mixes and all that stuff, because that's like the basis of everything that we do from scratch. But slowly we'll get into actual meals and maybe even meal planning. And I'm thinking maybe in the future videos. So I've
On
got a bunch of stuff going around in my head that I want to do.
Are you going to start a YouTube channel for the videos?
You know what? I have a YouTube. I've had it for
Okay.
years, and it's the same name, and I don't post as much as I should over there. And that was one of the goals that I set for myself this year also, aside from the homestead page on Facebook. I really do need to start growing the YouTube channel and get over there and just start doing it.
Okay. The other thing I was going to ask you is, would you consider doing an actual blog, not just the posts on Facebook, but would you start a blog for your series?
Um, I think, yeah, I'm a pretty good writer. I've been told that, yeah, I can do that. I think that this whole Facebook page really was just for me to dip my toes and get used to it
Uh,
and get myself, in the pace of, okay, now I'm trying to look at the homestead as a business and grow it and do all these things that I want to do. And I have a clear plan in my head of how I want that to go. I just am, I need to take these baby steps to make that happen so that I don't overwhelm myself, because I tend to do that and then I just stop. Anybody else?
Yeah. Yep. I've done it many, many
Yeah.
times. Yes. The
So
only
I'm
reason I'm
trying not
asking is
to do that.
the only reason I'm asking if you would start an actual blog is because if something happens to Facebook, you lose those posts.
Right. I know.
That would be sad.
It would be sad. But I do all of my posts that I put up, all my pictures of the recipes that I make, I do back those up on my computer so they wouldn't get lost. I do have them.
Okay, good. 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 I'm glad,
Yeah.
because what you're doing is actually going to help people. And part of the reason I started the podcast was to help people. And when I see other people doing things that actually help other people, it makes me really happy. So please keep doing it.
Yeah, I will. Thank you for saying that, because that's, I think a really important, it should be a really important goal for, all of us homesteaders, farmers, is to help each other, because we need to learn from each other and we need to support each other. And my thing is,
Absolutely, yes.
yeah, you gotta teach. You have to keep the old ways alive.
Yeah, because sometimes the new ways fail and we need the old ways.
Exactly.
All right. All right, Marissa, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it too, and I will never forget it because this is my first podcast.
Well, you did great.
Thank you.
All right, you have a good night.
You too.
Bye.